Good day, everyone. This is John here from 3DCOAT Tutorials, and welcome to this tutorial. So in this tutorial, I'll be actually going to go through the process of using 3DCOAT. And I thought it'd be a lot of fun to kind of go in and just work on some poly modeling, basically, and then bringing that stuff into Voxel sculpting, which would be very helpful to kind of create some forms. And then I'm going to also be using some pose tools and Voxhide stuff. So I hope this tutorial will help those that are learning. And yeah, let me know if you like this stuff. If you want me to continue, let me know. Thumbs up would be great. All right, so let's get going. So we're basically in the actual first part of the 3DCOAT when you turn on the program. This is version 2025, and they're pretty much similar to older versions as well. So nothing new here really will be that much different. But anyway, let's get going. So we're just going to start off first with the poly modeling, and we're going to go over some ideas and some thoughts on this. And I thought this would be a lot of fun to get a grasp of it. So in here, I'm going to select it. And you come up with things like different, adding geometry. You got things in here that tweaking geometry, smart to hybrid, and UV and selecting and things like that. And also, basically entering the mesh, exporting it, sub D, things like that. Now, some things I'm not as familiar with this program is, cutting stuff, booleans, things like that. I don't see a lot of stuff in here. Not to say that it might not have it, but I really don't see much in here. And my whole thing about this program is I like to use this part of it, the poly modeling, just to create basically cutters and things like that. And I use that a lot in my creations. As you can see over here on the right, these are all basically poly modeling that I just did today, just for fun to see, how these can come out. And real simple to do, and I'm going to go over that process. Part of the process that we'll also be going over is in the Voxel sculpting section. We're going to be using basically Pose Tool and Voxhide just to create something fun. So it's not just only about the tools. I want to show kind of, using the tools to make something. All right, so let's get going. So a couple things to keep in mind. When you're creating stuff, the basic place to go in this program is basically up to the top almost. And in here, you got like different areas. And one thing that I'll make sure that it's on modeling, right? And I use a lot of the select and select transforms. Another thing I'll be using a lot is either the 3D or 2D primitives. So for this first one, I'm going to use the 3D primitives, and I'm going to select that. And now you could use any of these type of shapes, but I'm going to basically go with a cylinder. So I'm going to zoom in, and this is what you first come up with, right? It kind of divides everything exactly in equals, and it divides it that way because this uniform division is on. Now, three things to understand here is you have the apply, and then in here you have the either add, subtract, intersect, and split. For this tutorial, I'll be mostly just adding the add on the apply and nothing else. So kind of keep this in mind. This is a quick tutorial. And a few other things I'll be doing is, just basically making some forms. All right, so first of all, we got the basic cylinder started off, right? I took this uniform division off. This will help take away, making sure everything is exactly 100% from poly to poly. You don't need that. And what I'll do here is I'll go back here to the cap. And on this specific one, I'll put 0. And that will make this like basically just one face. That's what I want. Now I'm going to add more sides here. I want to make sure that this is nice and smooth. You can just go with 24 if you want, or 32, or 36. I kind of like 24. It kind of is a nice number. And when you take this in anyway, you're going to subdivide it anyway. So it's not really critical that, every little, their edges are here or showing, but that's okay. It's not going to affect what we're building. So a few things I want to do here. One is I want to take this top piece and I kind of want to create it. But first, I got to make sure that I apply the actual creation of this model. So apply. When it turns a different color, it becomes its own, model. We could take this now and move it out of the way. Either side, doesn't matter. And I'm going to start working on this. So I'm going to go to the top here. I'm going to select it, basically select transform. And in here, I'm going to select the face. Real easy way to now go to the edge and select that edge without having to try to grab them all. especially on the bottom and top. That's the easiest way to select those sections. So now you got the line selected. We can just go in and kind of just shrink this down, make its own, like, I guess, bevel. And, we can also go in here and kind of just move this down as well to create a form that we want. So once you create this form, it's really good. And we can go back now and just add some things. So to make things work right, I always want to put in like a bevel on areas that are kind of harsh. So for instance, this is like a flat area to an edge. It's very harsh. So to get around that, I'm going to select this face again, go to the edge, and then I'm going to go down here almost to the bottom. And there's a section here that says basically selection or selected. We're going to go to bevel and see how it kind of created 4 sections here. So we can actually bring this up if we want to make it more rounded, or we can tighten it up. It depends on what look you want. I kind of want this a little tighter on the end. I'm also going to bring in this a little bit more, like around 6. Okay with that. Now, you can also roll your mouse wheel to do that. And that's also awesome. So let's go ahead and hit one more. Hit OK. I'm going to go to the top now. I'm going to also now select the line. So again, go back to select. And we're going to select the line here. And if I select this one now, I can just right click. And in here, we could actually select the edge loop. If you did this on top, it doesn't really work very well. So I always recommend selecting the face. So now that we're in here, we're going to now go back to the bevel. Under selection, right here. And again, we're going to make that a little bit tighter and a little bit less. I want this to have a nice form, kind of like more of an edge to a sharp edge to a nice smooth edge. And now that I've done that, I'm going to go now down to the bottom here. And again, like before on the top, we're going to go in and select the face here and just make this real simple. And then we'll select the line. And again, I'm going to go back to the actual bevel and I'm going to select it right here. Now, one thing I don't want to do here, I want to actually take this one and make it just one. I'm going to shrink this down a little bit. I want to make this like a nice, like, hard edge. Hit OK. So now that I've done that, I can select this again. Now, see how it's selected too many? We can go in here and kind of just zoom in. Or we can actually right click, Control Z, don't do that. We can go in here and deselect everything. And see this circle right here is too big. We need to kind of shrink that down and just select that one area. And in here, we can do the same thing. We can just do edge loop. And the same thing here. We can go in here and select this, go back to this. The problem is it selects everything, right? So don't want to do that. We can do this one first. Let's go and select the face. See how it selected that all together? We don't want to do that. Select the face. And once we've done that, we can now go in back to the bevel. Again, the more of this stuff we add, this comes out a lot nicer. If we don't do this, adding bevel, when you do a subdivide, it causes it to have like weird issues going on with the actual model. And it just becomes very harsh on the edges. So it's good to create some forms on these edges. So let's go ahead and do this. And I created just one there. But again, I want to make this a little bit more, like 3. I want to bring this down so it's not encroaching on this section, and hit OK. So now I'm going to select the line selection, and I'm just going to select this one again. Right click, edge loop, and again, we're going to do the same thing as we did before, bevel, but we're going to definitely dial that down, kind of like that. 3 is fine. Again, it just helps create that nice smooth edge, and hit OK. So now that I've done this, I'm not going to show too many of these things. I'm just going to kind of give you an understanding of how this works. Because again, once you start, it's not that difficult at all. Okay, so you got your form. And what we can do now is go to File, and we can export this as a poly object. So select that. And it's going to go to where all the models go within your program. So this is good to understand, but if you need to copy it, paste it, so we know what we're doing, or you can put it somewhere else and then, just make sure you copy the location so it's easy to find it. So here, I'm going to create a disk form, and I'm going to call this 3. And then I'm going to save. Now that I've done that, it doesn't do anything here with this, okay? So now, sculpt models. This is, you can pull this out, and this is what I've created. I created my own folder here. Now, if you do not have sculpt models in this area, you got to go to Windows, go to Panels, Windows, Panels, and then go down to where you see Sculpt, right here, Sculpt Models. If you don't have that showing, click on that. Now, you also have poly models as well. Now, that's if you're creating stuff in like this program, which is fine. But I'm going to take all this stuff into a voxel modeling application. So I don't want poly modeling. I want the actual, basically the actual sculpt models. So there we go. So it's there. Now what we can do here is that we've created and exported this object. I can hit the plus right here, and this will bring me back to the same folder that we were just in. And then you can go to modify whatever the last one was, click on it and open. And what happens here, it adds it to this. So it's hard to tell, but it's this one right here that I just created. Now you see there's a lot of lines here. That's not a problem. Don't worry about that. It's just something that it shows like a hard edge on all these lines. It'd be nice if it didn't do that because it just causes confusion. But once you've done this, now you have this set up, and you can actually put this back here if you want, like underneath here. So you can select it anytime you want. Now I'm going to go away from the modeling section and now go to the sculpt section. So in here, again, if you're not showing your actual sculpt section here, you want to bring that in. So now I got this here. I'm going to select the one I just did. Now, it's real simple. You just double click it. Okay, so it came in and you see it's blue, or you could have a different color, which is fine. Now, what you have to do before you actually add it, so you have apply, add, you got a couple different things here. You can add, subtract, intersect, or split. We're going to work with the add on this specific one. Now, I want to make sure that the axis is exactly at 0 because that's where it needs to be. And it's at 1 times. Now we're definitely going to bring this up because you see how many estimated polygons it's going to be. It's going to be very low. And with voxels, it's going to look really bad. So one thing we're going to have to do is we're going to have to increase this up. So once we start increasing, we're going to go right here to this like keyboard-like thing. It shows like more polys, whatever it is. You're just going to hit this a couple times. And you see how this goes up? I want at least 1 million in here for this. So again, one more time. And there we go. I always try to stick with 1 million in anything I create. This is for the basic form. And again, it's fine. You can go a little lower if you need to, but for my needs, I'm going to go with 1 million at 16 times. Okay. So it shows you right here. Now what you can do to get rid of these harsh lines, if you just apply right now, it's going to create this sharp line. It's going to look like really crappy, basically. So we're going to go in and now actually use the subdivide and click on that. See how it kind of divides everything? We'll do this again. And this actually stays the same, which is interesting. So you're going to kind of use this to help you kind of make this nice and clean. We're going to go one more time. And now it looks so like smooth, right? So perfect. So now that we've done that, we can now go ahead and hit the apply and add it. Same thing, if you're going to use this for like a cutter, you want to bring this in and divide it out before you start cutting because it's just going to look that much cleaner. So let's go ahead and apply. Boom. And there we go. And we can hit yes on that, which is fine. And now we can move this out of the way. Now let's investigate and see how this looks. It really looks really nice. It has a nice form and it's exactly what I needed. So it came out really sharp. All right. So just for the, making this kind of more fun. So that was real simple to create, right? So you're going to do the same thing with creating more of these objects. But for this exercise now, I'm going to start using it and showing you kind of what you can do with it now that we've created this form. So enable symmetries on. I'm going to also select the X here and the Z. I want them to be like a square here, or an X, whatever you want to call it. Kind of like a division between all four corners, right? And that's perfect the way I got it. Now that I've gotten this apply and added, it's perfect. Now I'm not going to do anything with sculpting. I don't want to talk about that. This is going to be more of a hard surface type tutorial. And I just thought that would be very helpful for the people trying to learn. So what we can do here is we can kind of just get rid of this, hide it out of the way. See how you've got more of these now? And we don't want that. So we can just select something over here, just get that off of there. I'm not using the build section, but anyway, we're going to go down now to a little bit farther down. And you got all these tools here, right? And we're going to go not to the adjust, but we are going to basically the transform. So in here, there's a pose tool. This is a really powerful tool. We can select this and it will be really nice what we can create with it. We're going to start modifying this object. So again, got to make sure these are all turned on. And we're going to go ahead and use the actual, right over here, you got these different sections, right? We got to select the actual, make sure it's like a rectangle, just so it's easier. Now we can use something like this, of course, but if we use something like that, it kind of has a different way of controlling things. So let's go to the top view here to take a look. So here, if I do something like this, it'll create a different effect, right? So we can do something like that. I mean, that's definitely possible. But for this exercise, see, we can do something like this to create some interesting forms. So this depends what you want to create. So we can undo this. That is pretty cool looking at the same time. But for this exercise, we're going to create just a basic, like a squarish, rounded form. And to do that, we're going to make sure we have everything selected. So we're going to go back here now and just select the rectangle. And we're going to go ahead and select the whole thing. Now everything's red. That's the objective here. Go to the top view and make sure it's on the perspective. And there we go. So now we got this basically done. Move this a little bit out of the way. We could put it over here somewhere. So we got symmetry here or whatever. Okay, so let's move this a little bit more to the side, like this. And what we're going to do now is we're going to make sure, since we've got all that done, symmetry is set up, X, Y, enabled, we're going to start using this actual transform tool to kind of pull this out. This will give us a really cool form, and this is real simple. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that it's 1 million polys, right? So it seems to be okay with what we have here. And then we can go here and bring this down. This way you have a really nice form. You can make a cell phone very easily like this, right? And I'm going to stick with this for now. So we're going to hit the enter key and go with what we got. All right, so it is done creating the object. And you'll notice that actually about 7 million polys. And that's a little bit too high for my liking. I normally go with about 1.5 million to 2 million, somewhere in there for the main form. So I'm going to go back in here and hit the actual spacebar. And then here you have the actual resample. You could also get that way down at the bottom here, just for reference. So you can also select it there, wherever you want to pick it at. But so we're going to go and just change this right now. I'm going to go with basically 2 million. Just to make it a little bit more, easier to move and work with. When it's too high, it becomes kind of slow. Hit OK. Hit OK. And this will still give us enough actual form, and it still look clean. That's the main objective here. Still looks really nice. Okay. So we're going to go now to the front view, and we got our form. So now I'm going to start using some other tools just to make it a little bit nicer. Okay, so we're going to actually now go up a little bit, and there's a section here where we got all these different things. And it's really basically actually right here under the adjust section. Look for the adjust, and then you got the actual Voxhide. We're going to select that for now. Now, one thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to take off the actual symmetry on this side. So take the Z off. I want it to be on the same exact opposite side as this. I don't want it to be exactly on both sides because it will create like more of a square. So we're going to go ahead now and work with this. Now I'm going to go with the actual line tool. So if you select it here, that's perfect. And then we can do the edge roundness. I want to make sure that's on. I'm going to do like maybe 14.5, somewhere in there. So I'm going to start selecting here to kind of create my form. Now, when you bring up your line, you could hit the Shift key and it will make it straight. So something like this. And I'm going to bring it up to about here. And then I'm going to kind of create it over here to the side, kind of at an angle, and then back here, and then back down. Now, I went past the halfway mark for a reason. So that way, when it actually connects together, it'll work. However, I need to make sure that this is longer than that. So I'm going to go ahead and just go again with the Shift key a bit farther and bring it down like this. Now, I did that for a reason because I want to move this whole thing a little bit farther to the left. I'm going to hit the spacebar now and just kind of move it kind of like that. I'm trying to get this kind of like equal in a sense to the side and to the top. And I'm going to go with that, and then I'm going to connect it here. Now this will connect and cut both sides. So as long as you have this enabled and you have it on the X, we should be good. So go ahead and click on it. And this will cut it out for the Voxhide. Now one great thing about Voxhide is we can go back in and kind of adjust things just by using the tools that we have. So now I'm going to go ahead and continue with the Voxhide with this. And I'm going to go with the line up again. I'm going to go about here, kind of cut across here like this. Then I'm going to bring it up at an angle, across, and then down, and then bring it back over to the end here like we did before, like this. And this time we're going to actually make sure that we hit the Control key. This will take and bring back the sections of the model. And there we go. Real easy to use. It makes it so simple to make forms. Yeah, it's very cool. All right, so let's continue. Okay, so with the Voxhide, we also have other opportunities to make things right? So one thing I don't really like about this model is I don't like that little cut right there because I want it to be kind of like smooth right on that edge. So again, we can make it real simple. We go to the actual right side here. See kind of how it's chopped right there? We can bring this in a little bit. And then we can go in and just, again, use the Voxhide, same thing. We're going to go up here. We're going to go like this, like this, like this. And then make sure we hit the actual Control key again. So select that. And there we go. And let's see how that looks now. And that looked really nice, but the thing is now it's kind of too much on the top here. So again, we can go back to the actual front here, and I can kind of, adjust this as I need. So I'm going to go ahead and just make it a little bit cleaner. Make sure the Voxide's selected. And we can just, again, I think I'll do something like this just to kind of get it started. I'm going to use a line. And again, I'm going to hit the Shift key, kind of help us with this. And just to kind of make it a little bit nicer, I'm going to make this more rounded here. So we're going to bring that radius up quite a bit. See how that's going to make it form a lot better. And I'll make it a little bit more, kind of like just get it to where it kind of, it seems like it works for what we're doing here. Even more. Yeah, see how that's kind of nice right there? It gives us a nice rounded look. Again, hit the Shift key so it's straight. And then we can bring it down. Now, one thing I want to make sure is past that edge here. So when I pull this down, it doesn't get a cut right there. So now that I've done that, we can bring this down here. Here. And I'm going to hit the space bar just to bring it down. Hold it down. Yeah, that was what I was doing wrong, not holding it down. And about right about there. Now we can bring this together like this with the, actually not without control key this time. We're going to cut it. So just leave it without nothing touching and let go. Here we go. So now we have a pretty cool form inside. Make sure it's all the way around. Now, for some reason, it did not do the other side, which is not a problem. We could fix that. See how this is not really done the same way? So that would have been on the z-axis if I would have had that set up. And now that I made this mistake, I'm going to show you how you can solve that. So now that we've done this, we have these now selected. We have it enabled. We can just go in here and say geometry, and you can select the symmetry copy. And this will help you copy it from one side to the other. Select it, and it'll do its thing. Now, it did the opposite, which we did not want. So how do we resolve that? Control Z. That's the first step. And we can go to the top view here. And again, we can now escape out of here. I'm going to go to the transform right here. And it's on the 0, 0 axis, right where it needs to be. And I'm going to rotate this on the actual Y. See, the Y is facing down on this. That means that it's the top view down. It's a little different in Blender. Normally it's a Z for us in Blender, but for 3DCOAT, it's the Y. You could have changed this, and if it's on a Z, then use a Z. But since mine's on the Y, I'm going to go ahead and rotate it. So I'm going to select this here. I'm going to do 180 degrees and hit OK. All right. So now that I've done that, it's actually now rotated, and the other side's over there, which is great. So now we can go in and make sure this is all set still. And now go to geometry and symmetry copy. And now this should work fine. It takes a second. See, that's there, and now that's there. So it's just the, the way symmetry copy is set up, it's on a certain angle. Yeah, that makes it work nice. So there we go. All right, so we got our form. I would suggest saving this as once you get your nice form that you really like. And I already have that, saved in a certain area. I would save it so you can find it. Now, a couple things that I would suggest doing here is we can go to the sculpt tree here. I would make a duplication of your object just because if you don't like something you've done and you don't want to go way, way, way back, you can always go back to the main object, or you can do variations of this, which is great. So I would suggest making a duplicate of this object. And after you do that, I would just say main form, copy or something like that. So you know what it is, right? And hit it enter. I would also take these two off so you don't see them. And in here, you can bring this up out of the way and just away from everything. So now I got the main one selected again. Okay, cool. So that was the first step. Now I'm going to continue to build this out. So let's go ahead and make some interesting shapes. We're now going to, now we got a form. I'm going to go back to the 3D modeling section here. So go to modeling. And we're going to start creating some new forms. So one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hide the voxel. I don't want to see that. And the objective here is to go in here now and adjust, and modify this. So hit the select transform, select the main object itself, and there we go. We can delete that now. It's out of my way. I want to make sure that we reset the axis and we go back to the center, and everything's kind of centered off of the actual axis when I start drawing this. Okay, so we're going to now create a nice actual round disc that is bigger than before. So we're going to go here, select disc, and we've gotten that here. I'm going to take away the symmetry right now, just because I think it's a little over too much here. So let me open the symmetry. I'm going to take this off. I don't want to see that for now. And I'm going to make this basically a little bit more chunky. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger on the radius. So I'm going to do something like maybe 16 point or 15.5. I'm also going to take this uniform division off again. I'm also going to go back to the cap here and put down 0 and hit enter. I'm also going to go ahead and increase the actual sides to like, let's go with 32 or 36. So it's in the center. Good with that. And yeah, I think this will look cool. And let's go ahead and now apply. So add. Now it turned a different color, right? So now let's go back to select transforms. And we're going to select the top piece here. And one thing I'm going to make sure that we have on this is if I go to top view, this should be down the center, right? So we got to make sure we reset this all so it's perfect. So I'm going to go back here and say reset axis to center mass. And now it's down the center. And that's what we wanted. So we can also use the Alt key now to move this. Okay, so now that we got the top piece here kind of selected, we can actually just bring this in with this piece right here. Bring this down. I want to make it kind of like a nice looking form. And I'm going to now basically select the actual line. Okay, so now I'm going to go down farther and we're going to look for the actual bevel. So down here under selected, it's bevel. So it's going to go 1 time. So I'm going to do like basically 3 times on the top piece. Make that a little bit bigger. Maybe we'll do like maybe 6. Just to give it a little more detail there. Okay, so now we've got this. Let's go back now to the selected or selected transform. I'm going to select this line here. Right click, and I'm going to select the edge loop. Again, this is going to be a very harsh line if I don't do this with the bevel, and I don't want to have anything go wrong when I do the subdivision again, like we did before. So again, bevel, and we can kind of decrease this down a little bit so this has a nice edge here, and hit OK. So same thing on the bottom, like we discussed earlier. We want to make sure we select the actual face on the bottom. Now select the line. It's really easy to select it that way. And again, we're going to go back to the edge bevel. And again, for this exercise, I'm going to bring this down quite a bit. I could bring this down to like maybe 3 and hit OK. I'm going to save this out. So first of all, I'm going to go to File. I'm going to export this out as a poly object. The poly object will be a disk, same place as before. Let's say form 4, so I know what it is. Save. Okay, so now that we've done this, I'm going to move this a little bit out of the way. I'm going to go back to my sculpt models that we created earlier with your own information, and we're going to hit the plus key here, and that goes to the same folder. And I'm going to select the disk form again and open. So there we go. So now we can go back to the actual sculpt mode. Okay, so I'm back in here now. I'm going to unhide this. And I'm going to kind of scale this down. All right, cool. So what I'm going to do now is actually go back here to the file. Actually, when I don't have to do this, I can do that if I want to. But since I've already got them on my sculpt model, I could just basically just double click this here. So simple, right? You bring this up. See again how it's kind of blocky. I also don't like this angle. I want to bring this over to the other side. So I'm going to rotate this again on the Y, or actually on the X, because it's going to go this way. So the X is what we need. So let's go ahead and select this. And we're going to put 180 degrees here and hit enter. So that way it's exactly 100% rotated, like 180 degrees. And now we can just kind of just bring this form into this space, just like that. And I think this would look really cool on the top of this. The problem is it's going all the way through, right? So we kind of need to scale this down a little bit. All right, so let's do that. First of all, I'm going to bring this down like that. I'm going to bring this up a little bit more. And I'm making sure that this doesn't penetrate through that space. So we can now see what we're doing. Just kind of move a little bit. See how it kind of penetrates right there? I do not want it to penetrate. Again, depending on what you want. So I'm also going to scale this up. I think it'd look better if it was a little bit bigger on the top of this. And now, again, bring this back up a little bit, like that. Now, one thing we're going to make sure we're doing here is that it's not at some weird angle. So here it's flat. And then if you go to the right, in the front, it is exactly, straight. That's the main objective. Now, let's go down to the subdivide. Now, if we didn't put those edges on this, this would be difficult. It'd be all chaotic right now. So we're going to subdivide this again, like we did before. Again, we've got 513,000 faces. Go one more time. So we did it like 4 times. That's really smooth, and that's kind of what we want. Now keep in mind, now that we've done this, we're going to subtract it from this object here. So let's go ahead and now hit subtract and apply. And we can hit yes, and we can move this out of our way. And we have this really nice rounded form now created on this object. All right, so that's looking really cool. I want to add some more things to this just to kind of give it some other shapes. So again, I'm going to go to the right view and got to make sure the symmetry is back on. So again, symmetry on the Z. So Z, see sound down the center here. So I'm going to use the pose tool to do some more work here just to kind of get some more interesting forms. So I have this right now on the opposite side, and I'm good with that. I also want to make sure that I have it also on the X as well. All right. So we're going to go back here now and go to the actually to the right view. And we're going to start creating more forms again with the pose tool. So now that we've got this selected, I'm going to go ahead and just bring out a nice little section here. Kind of like this. Let it go. And see, you got this nice red section here. That's exactly what we want. And then I'm going to also go here and bring this all the way out. Kind of like that. And what this has done is created kind of a Control Z. I don't want this to be too far. Let's go back a little bit. I want to make sure that this edge here is covered. So we can go something like this. Hit the space bar, bring it in. I want it to be lower than that all the way through and let go. Okay, cool. So now everything's selected. Okay, we can hit the Alt key here and we can see what this is going to look like. All right, so everything's kind of there. I'm going to go ahead now and just, bring this up a little bit. But first of all, I want to make sure that this is all set up right. So this is not centered. So I want to make sure that I reset the axis. I'm going to go to the center, to the main axis. For some reason, this is not exactly centered. So if I move this, it gets all screwed up, right? But you can go in here, if say you don't have something that's not working right, you can actually move only the gizmo, which is your actual axis, and make sure that this is lined up in the center. Like that, okay? And then we can go to the actual front view and make sure that's 0, okay? So now everything's lined up. It'll be much easier to control this. So let's go and pull this around. And I just want to create some nice like edge here. That's what I'm doing. So now that we've gotten this, we're going to make sure we take this back off, right? Okay, so what I want to do here is I kind of want to form this a little bit differently. I want to make it thicker and a little bit higher. And I'm going to first start off with the actual edge here. I want this to bring this little bit piece out. So I'm going to form this out like this. And then once I've gotten that where I want it, I'm then going to form this out like this. A little bit higher. something like that. And I just think this is going to look nice because now I did the side first. This is kind of pulling a little bit on the top piece here. And there's a little bit of edge there and edge there. So yeah, I'm fine with that. So hit enter. And there we go. Now we got a nice form. And one thing I would suggest for understanding, so we're going to go back to the actual frontier and see how we kind of created this. Now earlier we were creating, stuff with the actual Voxhide, and we could try to now use that to our advantage. So we're going to go in here. Again, all the things are set up, but if we go back to Voxhide under the actual selection, or actually under adjust, let's select this now. And we're going to go in here, just kind of use this. And let's see if we can try to get this detail back in here. So I'm going to use the actual box here, but I'm going to make sure that radius is down quite a bit. Maybe something like that. And now we can go in and just use, we're going to bring this out like this. We're going to use a space bar, bring it over here. And this time I'm going to use the control key. You got to make sure you use the control key. Otherwise that won't work. Let go of that, let go of this. There we go. Now it's created another form inside here, which is very interesting. You can go back here to the right view, and we can go back in again, select this, space bar. Actually bring this up a little bit more, space bar. Space bar, and we can just go in here. Actually, I want this a little bit longer. Space bar. We can bring this in right here and then cut. Okay, cool. So that gives us a really nice, inner form. Cool. So it's this real easy way to kind of develop some different strategies here. Let's go back to the actual front view. And this is say you want to do some more changes in here. We're going to continue with the Voxhide. And this time I'm going to go ahead and do another section like this, kind of like that. And I'm going to use this, and I'm going to make sure again, get that a little closer there so it's intentional. And I'm going to bring it right about there. I'm going to hit the control key, or actually just the regular cutter. I'm going to bring this down a little bit more. Spacebar. And we're going to bring this about here, just like that, and let it go. Now we have a nice like hook, and it looks like it belongs. All right, I'm really good with this shape here, and we're going to add a little bit more to it now. So let's go ahead and continue to drive this. So we've created this whole form. We created this form. I'm going to go ahead now and go back here. I'm going to bring this down, kind of like that. I'm also going to scale this down, bring this up, kind of like this. And this is going to be an interesting shape because, again, I don't want this to be part of this. I want to make this a separate entity. So I'm going to hit the plus key here just to create my own layer. And now that I've done that, I'm going to make sure I go back in here and subdivide again. So we're going to do this like 4 times, right? And now this is going to become its own little piece on the top. And I just think that will look kind of nice. I'm going to scale this down just a little bit though. Just kind of, so I can see the edges of this other one, right? Like that. Maybe even smaller, something like this. And this way it's like a cat piece. Maybe a little bit smaller. Control Z. I think we're just going to bring this down about here. Now make sure it's centered. Go back to the top here and just see what it looks like. And again, do a lot of testing, just to see how things look. I think that looks kind of cool. Now make sure it's on its own axis, and we're going to do now a add and apply. Cool. And yeah, that looks really nice. It has its own form. Now, one thing that we could do is we could either bring it down if we want, or, whatever. Again, we could change colors on this just to make it different from the main form. And like I said, just a real easy way to kind of, adjust things. Okay. So I'm going to continue. Everything I'm using here is something that I've created for this actual tutorial. And now I'm going to show you how to do something like this triangle here. So let's go ahead and make that. So we're going to go back to sculpt, back to modeling. And in here again, I'm going to hide this one and this one. Now that we've gotten this here, we're going to select the object here and just delete it. We already created it. We're going to go back to the top, and we're going to go back to the 3D primitives. And in here, we have this set up. I'm going to now scale this in a little bit on the radius. Don't need it that wide. And then I'm also going to bring this upward. Oops, Control Z. I'm going to bring this upward. Okay, so a couple things I'm going to do here. I'm going to change this completely. I'm going to take these sides off. I'm going to go down to the very minimum. I'm going to also take this off for now. So now we have a triangle. Very cool, huh? Easy to do. And we got the triangle. I'm going to also add in a little bit more on the height here. I'm going to bring this up kind of like 3. Okay? And I'm good with that. Apply. So we made a triangle. Very simple, right? So now we can go in and just go ahead and go back to the selection and we actually select all these sections. I just personally do this by hand. For me, it's just easier that way. And then these ones. And there we go. We got our 3 sections. Now, what are we going to do with this? We're going to make this look really nice and, sharp. So let's go ahead now and we're going to bevel this. So again, we got the line selected. I'm going to go all the way down to selected, hit the bevel, and we're going to create this to be a little bit bigger on the bevel. And I'm also going to bring this up, something like maybe 10. And I'm going to bring this a little bit more. I just think this will look nice around there. And that's a little bit too much. I think we'll go with like 3. Let's go with 3. So I just need to enter it. If it goes inside itself, it causes a problem, of course. So 3. I'm going to hit OK. Cool. Now the bottom here is what I want to work with. And same thing as we did before. We can use the polygon, select it, and we can scale this in. So let's go ahead and scale this in. And we're going to bring this upward. This will give us a nice, form. Maybe not as far as that. So maybe about right about there. And this is going to be like a stamp in a sense. So let's go and select this now. And we're going to bevel this. So again, we're going to go down quite a bit. I want to make sure this is tight, just like that. And 3 is fine. Hit OK. Same thing here. I'm going to select this, right click, edge loop. And this becomes redundant after a while. You get used to it. Be doing it so many times that it becomes easy to do, right? So we're going to bring this down again. This time I'm going to bring this up just a little bit more. Okay. Hit OK. And I still want to do one more thing. I want to take this one here and just do that as well. It just makes everything clean. So we're going to select this. In case I ever want to rotate it, I can. And we got this now covered. We're going to go back to bevel. And we're going to bring this up quite a bit. Again, I don't really care about the top one. I'm using the bottom here, but that's okay. Hit OK. So now we got this nice form I'm going to now export this out as a poly object. And this one's going to be triangle. So we're going to say triangle 2 and save. Now that we've done that, we can go here, triangle 2, open, and there we go. So now let's go back to the sculpt mode here and hide this one and this one. Okay. So we can use the Alt key to zoom out a little bit. And I'm going to go now to the bottom of this and double click this. Right? So I'm going to bring this up now, just like that. Cool. So I kind of got my form here, and I need to scale this a little bit more. So we're going to bring this up, kind of like that. And I'm going to zoom this out, bring this up, and we're just going to stamp into this, just like that. Okay, cool. So now that we've got this, again, we're going to subdivide like 4 times. And this will be cutting into this one. So we got to make sure that this is selected. So this is the right one, right? So we're going to go in here now, subtract, and apply. And once we've done that, see how simple that was to kind of create some cool forms? Really easy to do. And you really can, do something with it, right? So very cool. And yeah, that's it for this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe and like if you like this material. And looking forward to continuing to build this stuff out. Thank you for joining me.